Okay, let's dive right in. What is happening in your mind right now that makes you actually experience this moment? We're not just talking about being awake versus being asleep. We are going deep, deep into the very nature of consciousness itself to ask one of the biggest questions out there: what turns a simple mental process into a conscious one?
I mean, really think about it. Your brain is a powerhouse, running countless operations right now that you have zero awareness of. But then, some thoughts, some feelings, some sensations, they break through. They get that special, hard to describe quality of being experienced. So what's the secret ingredient? What is the actual difference between a background process and a thought that's front and center, in the spotlight of your mind? That's the exact puzzle we're going to try to piece together.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with how consciousness and self-awareness are linked. Then we'll step into the ring for the main event: thought versus inner sense. We'll look at the strengths of each side, uncover a really tricky problem that they both have to deal with, and then we'll wrap it all up with a powerful analogy that should make everything click into place.
So to get started, we need a really foundational idea. A lot of thinkers in this space believe that what makes a mental state conscious is that we are, in some way, aware of that state. You see, consciousness, from this point of view, is totally tangled up with a kind of self-awareness. Now, this idea gets a formal name: higher order theory. And the core rule is actually pretty simple. For any mental state, a desire, a feeling, a memory, to become conscious, you need a second thing to happen. You need a higher order state, a metastate that is about the first one. And here's the kicker. This has to happen at the exact same time, and it has to be automatic, no deliberate reasoning. It's just an instant awareness of the first state. Let's make this super concrete because it can sound a little abstract. Imagine you want a cup of coffee, okay? That desire itself, that's the first order state. It's just a raw psychological thing happening in your brain. For that desire to become a conscious desire, you need step 2, a higher order state where you are aware that you want coffee. It's the huge difference between your body just craving caffeine and you knowing, man, I really want some coffee. That second step is what brings the desire out of the shadows and into the light. Okay, so if consciousness needs this meta state, the next question is pretty obvious, right? What is that state? What's it made of? Is it a kind of thought, or is it more like an inner perception, like an eye turned inward? And this right here is the great debate. This is what splits the whole field into two major camps. So let's meet the contenders. In one corner, we have the higher order thought theory, who we can call Team Hot. They argue this meta state is basically a thought, like a little belief or a judgment. In the other corner, we have the higher order perception theory, or Team Hop. They say, no. The meta state is way more like an inner sense, a kind of internal monitoring system. So is your awareness a judgment, or is it an inner gaze? Let's start with Team Hot. This idea is championed by philosophers like David Rothenthal and Peter Carruthers. For them, consciousness is at its core a conceptual thing. It's all about judgment. So the core claim is actually pretty straightforward. When you consciously see a red apple, it's not just because you have the raw visual sensation of red. It becomes conscious because you also have a separate higher order thought that's basically a judgment, like I'm now having a red seeing experience. It's that conceptual tag, that judgment, that flips the switch from unconscious to conscious. Now, the main selling point for the Hot theory is just how clean and simple it is. It doesn't need to invent any new, mysterious mental parts. The proponents argue, look, we don't have any known organs for inner sensing. When we look inside our own minds, we don't find some weird extra layer of sensory stuff. We just find our thoughts and feelings themselves. Hot theory uses only the tools we already know the mind has. But of course, not everyone is sold on that. So let's turn to the other contender, the higher order perception, or HOP theory. This one's associated with thinkers like David Armstrong and William Likened, and they see this whole thing in a completely different way. The central idea for Team Hop is that consciousness isn't like thinking at all. It's like perceiving. They propose that we have something like an inner sense, an internal scanner that's constantly monitoring our own mental landscape, kind of like how our eyes scan the world around us. And consciousness is just the data feed from this internal monitoring system. Now, the real power of the HOP theory is how well it seems to match the actual feeling of being conscious, right? Our awareness of our own mind feels direct. It feels immediate. We don't have to reason our way to it. It's just there. And those are the exact hallmarks of perception.
You don't deduce that you see a tree, you just open your eyes and see it. HOP theory says our self-awareness works pretty much the same way. Okay, so we've got two really compelling but totally opposite theories, thought versus perception. But here's the twist. For all their differences, both Team Hot and Team Hop run smack into the very same, very difficult problem. This really gets to the core of it. Think about it. When I look at a rock, my perception is aimed right at it, but that doesn't make the rock become conscious. And if I think about the planet Mars, my thought is directed at Mars, but that doesn't make Mars conscious. So why on earth should it work for our own mental states? This is known as the generality problem, and it is a huge hurdle. If consciousness is just a matter of pointing a higher order state at something, why does this magic trick only seem to work on other mental states? Why does pointing your mental flashlight inward light up the state itself, while pointing it outward does absolutely nothing to the rock you're looking at? So the crucial question for both sides is, what's so special about mental states? They can't just throw up their hands and say, well, that's just how it is for minds. They need a real, principled reason why this mechanism of awareness creates consciousness for our internal world, but not for anything else. All right, to really get a handle on this whole debate, let's use a great analogy. Let's think of your mind like a computer's operating system for a second, and let's see how Team Hot and Team Hop would each describe how it monitors itself. And this just nails the difference, doesn't it? The Hot theory is like a text log file. The system makes a clear conceptual statement and writes it down. Process X is running. It's an explicit report. The Hop theory, on the other hand, is like a live performance dashboard. It's not a statement. It's a direct, streaming, almost visual feed of that process's activity as it's happening. One is a report, the other is a live stream. So this brings it all back to you. As you sit here and reflect on your own inner world right now, what does your self-awareness actually feel like? Is it more like a series of quiet conceptual judgments about what you're thinking and feeling? A text log? Or is it more like a constant, perception-like inner sense? A live dashboard of your mind? The debate is far from settled, and the answer might just be hiding in your own experience.